I think there's only 2 more presentations before drinks, so I am super excited about that. My name is Daniel Cooperman. I work at a company called Snowflake as Director of Product Marketing. And if you haven't heard about Snowflake, we are a cloud-based data warehouse, a fast-growing startup out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm really glad I got a chance to come here to Boston because I used to live here. I went to Bentley for my MBA. Anyone went to Bentley? Yay! Yeah, let's connect afterwards. Exchange stories. And as I was thinking about what to talk about, one of the things that I, looking back in my career in product marketing, that I felt I really screwed up badly, especially in the beginning, was analyst relations. So I thought, you know what, I think this is like a safe space. I can share my stories with you guys, and hopefully you can avoid the mistakes I did, Now, before we jump into it, how many of you have, in some shape or form, any kind of interaction with analysts within your industry? Yeah, so if you're in like B2B tech, very likely you're going to end up doing something with the analyst. Now, raise your hand if you like talking to analysts. Okay, I love you guys, perfect. It's one of those things that is interesting. Like, I didn't like actually talking to them in the beginning because what's kind of hard, I didn't know how to do it, but I really came to appreciate the value that they can bring to the table, especially if you know how to use them. How many of you have an analyst relations team or someone full-time doing analyst relations? Perfect, awesome. It's great. So if you have someone outside of product marketing team, and some larger companies like at Snowflake, we just got someone for that, analyst relations, it's great because they can take care of a ton of stuff. However, from a product marketing perspective, you still want to keep tabs on what's happening there because of several reasons. So let's jump into that, and let's see. Perfect. Now, the next question I have for you. If you were to evaluate your analyst relations programs today, would you say it feels more like this or this? And I've been through both of them at multiple companies. Sometimes I'm feeling like I'm being choked to death, and other times like the CEO comes like, hey, good job. I'm like, what did I do? Like, I don't know. But it's interesting. And by the way, side note, you're going to see some Star Wars references in my presentations because it's very important if you want to be a good product marketer to like Star Wars. I'm just saying. So if you haven't caught up with the movies lately, there's a new one coming up, and so you still have a chance to do that. So what I wish I had known, right, I want to talk to you guys about this today, is there's certain factors that are going to influence your analyst strategy, and why in product marketing, whether you have time or you don't have time, why you need to make some time for analysts. I want to also share a little bit of what I learned about our role as product marketing in interacting with the analysts and the team that does that. And then I want to make sure that I leave you guys with some tangible things for you to either take back to your companies if you want to start your analyst program, or if you want to evaluate or talk to the analyst team about, hey, are we doing these things, okay? Feel free to also reach out to me later for the slides, and we can chat afterwards as well more. This is something that always comes to my mind, and it's kind of interesting because I have not seen any analyst report by itself win a deal. Like, I haven't seen a sales rep come back to me and say, you know what? That Gartner quadrant, that's why we closed the deal. Like, it helps, but it's not because of that. Now, the corollary to that, right, is you have the sales rep who is at the last final stretch of closing the deal, and he comes back to you and says, oh my God, the prospect just brought up this analyst report. It may not even be like a tier 1 analyst, but whatever analyst that is now talking favorably about the competition, and suddenly the deal is on hold because they now need to evaluate because the CIO or whatever. So it's one of those things where it might not help you win, but if you don't engage with analysts in a good way, it's definitely not going to help your cause and help you win deals. Now, having said that, so there's something called the Gartner Magic Quadrant. If you're in B2B tech, like most of us are here, we have somehow either been there or heard of it, or it is being shoved in our faces. And this is kind of how the analysts are talking to us. And it could be a wave, could be there are multiple different ways that different analysts take care of that. Typically, upward and to the right is great, right? And the analysts tell you, this is great, you're doing great, you're a leader, right? If you're below that, or like the analyst is going to keep saying, like typically the challenger quadrant right there, oh, you're doing good. Feel proud of it. If you're in the upper left here, it's like, hey, not too bad. Don't feel bad. This is great still, Every quadrant has a reason to be there. And every company needs to feel like they belong to the quadrant. And if you're on the lower quadrant here, it's like, yeah, keep working. One day you're going to get there. You're not big enough. Don't worry about that. Well, that's easy for them to say, right? What the reality is like when we're up there, like, yeah, you feel like you've done your job. You can go home at 5 o'clock, not at 9 o'clock. But, you guys see what's happening here. And then the battle is what other people in the company see, especially the CEO says. It's always like, I want to be higher in the quadrant. But we're already like, we're stretching the boundaries. No. You didn't do your job well. Are we not paying them enough? If you've dealt with analysts, especially a small organization, and the CEO comes to you and says, like, why are we paying this analyst? It's because he was not happy with the quadrant, right? So, having said that, interesting thing I've noticed also is, depending on how much effort you put, is also the amount of effort you're putting into analysts also depends on the life cycle of your company. And you don't want necessarily to put a lot of effort into this if you're super early stage in an existing category, right? So what I've learned, at least from my experience working in companies of different sizes and different stages, is it's kind of like this curve. So super early stage, you have other things to do. You don't have time to that because you're not just doing product marketing, you're doing demand generation, you're doing the website. And why are you doing PR? Like, I don't understand that. But as you get like Series B, okay, now we gotta get analysts involved. So someone has to do that. Who knows the product? Who knows how to talk to people? So the product marketing person is typically thrown there. But after a while, you need more help, right? So, for example, at Snowflake, we're definitely very close to the pre-IPO stage, and that's why we're hiring more people and getting analysts, a relations person on board to help scale that. But also, so that's in that existing category. What I would say is, and I've also been there at my previous company, where we were basically creating a category, like no one knows what you mean by A, B, and C, where your effort begins way earlier than the typical time where you engage with the analyst, right? And it still takes a lot of time. It doesn't matter. But how analysts help, and this is my personal experience, and I've been through all of this on helping validate the company and the solution, right? If you're creating a category, it is extremely important for that on defining and showing the analyst report as a validation of what you're saying. It's actually not just BS, right? There's more people in the industry for that. Giving market and competitive intelligence. And if you learn how to ask the right questions to the analyst, you're going to get super deep insights as to what is happening in the market that you may not know because you don't have time to track all of the 30 different competitors, because they're industries that you're not in yet, but the analysts are, and because of what the customers, like the analyst clients, are telling them about their own evaluations of solutions like yours. The other part of this is assisting with product and go-to-market priorities. So I've taken product teams to meet with analysts to have them show the roadmap, so the analysts can say, why are you doing that? And now they're hearing from the analyst and not from me, right? So it helps to validate some of that stuff. As an unbiased sounding board as well, it is great that we feel like we have the best product in the market, but let's hear from someone else who is not buying, who doesn't care about buying it, and is really giving you their opinion based on what they know. Of course, the corollary to that is analysts can be biased, right? So you just got to take that with a grain of salt, and that's why you have tier 1, 2, and 3 analysts. So depending on who you're talking to and their experience. Feedback on your sales team. It came as a complete surprise to me a couple years ago when I heard an analyst telling me about what their clients were telling them about our salespeople. And this is something that the VP of sales had no idea, the CEO had no idea, but the analyst said, listen, it has happened now, not once, but enough times that your sales team is coming across as arrogant, as whatever. And that is because of a question that we ask, like, what can you tell us about our sales in comparison to other competitors? What is your clients like? And they're like, well, now that you're asking this, let me tell you. And this opened up another level of like, oh my God, we need to do something about this. Buyer insights, of course, so they are talking to the people you're trying to sell to. Learning how to leverage those insights. Some analysts, like if you get like serious decisions, they have buyer reports ready for you to download of different personas. Gartner has for the more technical guys, the CAOs, the AT managers, but regardless of that, you can also use them to help you understand what your buyers are trying to do. And demand generation. And demand generation happens in a couple ways. One is, the basic one is licensing, so you can license those reports. And that's where product marketing comes into play, is like, what reports should we even think about licensing, right? To help you with the webinars, to help you with demand generation. But the other part of demand generation that I also have seen working is when analysts refer clients directly to you. And finally, if you're an early stage startup, investors, if you're trying to raise money, the VCs will call on the analysts. They will call anywhere between 3 to 5 different analyst companies, and they will ask the company, like, have you heard about this company? Have you heard about the market? Should I invest in this company or not? And they do that. Now, based on my personal experience, because I've done that a few times, what can blow up your analyst plan? One is the CEO and the other top execs don't get the point of analyst relations. Like, why are we not in the quadrant? Why are we paying for this? So it's important to get that internal alignment, especially. Otherwise, you're fighting a non-winning battle. No one is responsible. So that's the other thing that happens. Is like, well, let's get the product marketing person. Okay, if you're going to be responsible, then they need to give you the responsibility for that, right? They're different things. And being responsible means you need to own the message that's going to be told to the analyst, you're going to own the schedule, you're going to own that, or you're going to have to find someone who can help you do that. And it can't just be like ad hoc. Oh, have you briefed an analyst this month? No. If you treat it as a pay-for-play strategy, it doesn't work. End of the year, someone's going to come to you and say, why are we spending $100,000 or whatever $1,000 with this or that analyst? I don't see us mentioning their reports. Like, if you're thinking that just by upping the amount you're paying, you're going to get mentioned, that doesn't work, right? And finally, if you're not honest, and I used to work at this company, I'm not going to mention the name, but every time I went into a meeting with an analyst where the CEO was there as well, I would walk out of the meeting learning something I didn't know about the product. And like, can we really do that? And the CEO would say, oh, we will. That's not good, because what's happening is all the analysts are taking notes about what you're asking, what you're saying. In a lot of cases, those notes are recorded and transcribed. And 3 months later, when you have the next call with them, the briefing, they're going to say, so, last time, according to my notes, you said this was going to be live. Where is it? Right? And if you don't have it, and if you keep doing that over and over, you're going to lose complete credibility with the analyst. So it got to a point where I would not invite the CEO anymore to the meetings. And I would tell them, listen, I want to use you strategically, right? I don't want to waste your time. And it was basically like, I don't want him here because it's not going to go well. So how can we help the company with analyst relations? The role of product marketing and analyst relations. So there are 4 key things I've been thinking about that have helped me put back analyst programs on track. One is messaging. And messaging is, of course, helping craft the story and the message we want to tell the analyst. It's not the same story and the message you tell to your prospects, okay? So there are slightly differences there. We're going to talk a little bit more detail about that. The second point is positioning. And again, it's not just positioning against your direct competitors. It's helping the analyst see you in the overall space against competitors, but also related to the trends that you are seeing in the market and how you're going to ride that wave, or you're helping create the wave in the market. The third element is competitive, and is arming the analysts with how can they pitch your product for you. And you might find that interesting, like why is the analyst pitching? But when clients call Gartner, Forrester, etc., they're going to ask, who should I look at? And why should I see company A versus company B? And that analyst needs to be able to say, this is how this company is different. They have A, B, and C. If you're looking for something else, you can go with this company. So they help clients shorten the list of who they are going to look at. And the client goes back to their boss and says, Gartner told me I need to look at these 3 companies, and they already told me how they're different. So you want to make sure that they know that. And one good way to make sure that they know that is you ask them. At the end of the call, it's like, okay, let me just ask you something. How would you now present this to a client if they ask, how are we different, right? And it's funny because I just had a couple of calls recently where we had to correct the analyst because, well, my understanding is now that this feature does A, B, and C, you guys can do this. And we're like, okay, no, so let's step back. So do not end the call there. Like, okay, we either need to dive deeper into this or we need to have another call because, our mistake. Maybe we went too fast. And then he's like, okay, now I got it. I wrote it down. And what I'm going to say is this, like, perfect. Awesome. And the final thing is discovery. So how can we're always looking for more market research, customer insights. Use analysts also as part of your discovery process of what makes customer tick, what is happening in the market, and whether you are the one talking or you have someone else pitching the analyst, could be your product manager, could be your VP, whatever. Make sure that there's certain questions you want to get out there and you want to get that information back to the team so you can use that. There are a few different flavors of analyst decks. 3 examples here. So one example is you start off, and imagine this like a vendor briefing, what they call. You're meeting the analyst for the first time and talking about your company. So you can have it segmented like this. This is our company, this is our product, this is what we do, these are our happy customers, and this is the roadmap. Okay, fairly standard. Now, another way of phrasing that conversation is, this is our company, we have very smart people in the team, we're growing super fast, we have a ton of happy customers, and by the way, this is our solution. Or you could also structure it like this. Hey, this is our company, this is our solution, this is how we're going to be positioning in the market, this is how customers are using our product, and by the way, this is where we're going with this. Now, A, B, or C, right? If you think that A is the best pitch, raise your hand. A, no. B, C, yeah. So you can tailor depending on the conversation, but for the vendor briefing, you're better off structuring similar to the C option. And I'll talk to you about that, why that is. There are a couple signs why you had a bad analyst meeting, and I've had all of those happen to me. At the end, they have no questions. They have no questions, it means they don't understand what you just said. The analyst has no time to ask questions, also not good. You have, let's say, 45 minutes for the briefing. If you use all those 45 minutes, something's wrong. You should not do that because you always want to make sure that there's a little bit of room for questions and answers. They can pronounce your company name, so that's obvious, and which also happened to me. And the analyst thinks you're the same as your competition. This is the worst outcome of them. And that's why when you're structuring your pitch to them on the deck, think about how are other companies pitching, right? So if you go back, like most companies are going to be pitching like, this is who we are, this is our product, this is the great capabilities that we have, we are awesome, right? Everyone's pitching them this way. So what are you going to do to show them how you're different? And there's a few different things that makes a great analyst deck. And this is not just from me, but I look up and I talk to like Gartner, Forrester, and different analysts, and like always asking them, what was about the presentation that you liked the most? One of the best things that you can do is to, at the end of the session, is you ask the analyst for feedback. And I was at a call a couple of years ago at another company, and I asked the analyst, so just honestly, we still have 10 minutes left. What do you think? Like, did I do a good job differentiating my company or not? Like, what could I have improved? Just openly ask that. And what the analyst told me is like, Daniel, your presentation was the same as every other vendor in your market. I don't understand how you guys are different. What I would like to see from you, and that's where I started taking notes, right, is the following. There are a few interesting things that you need to structure a presentation around. One is awareness, and it's not just who we are as a company, but making sure that they are aware of what you do, aware of who you are, aware of the market you operate in, and aware of who is the ideal buyer for. And you can't just say everyone can buy. It's typically you come in and you say, cross industry, any CIO in the market can buy a product. Well, there are very specific situations, the ideal customer profile. If the analyst knows that, bang, they can also help you identify potential customers. And it happens. Differentiation. You need to be able to differentiate, not just about your product, but about the market itself and your solution. Demonstrate is not just doing a product demo, but is demonstrating exactly how a customer uses your product. And the evidence is, what are the results customers are getting? So what I've learned when talking about features is, if I'm going to show something new to the analyst, is I could do a very short demo just to show like this exists, right? But then I want to walk them through how a very specific company that I'm going to name to the analyst uses a product and the results you're getting. Because once they hear that, it starts, the understanding sinks in. It's storytelling 101, right? It's like, oh, let me tell you about company ABC. They were having this problem, and this is what happened. And now we came in, and we're the hero, and why they became the hero of the story. So analysts can then repeat that, and they can understand better how you're different. So, the plan. So, there are 4 key things from a product marketing perspective, which is I'm thinking here, that I always want to make sure that either I am doing or someone else in the team is doing about the plan. Their goals, their schedule, their people, and their tracking. The goals is around clarity and alignment. If the CEO is only interested in getting you up on the right quadrant, and we know they are, but what else are we trying to get out of the analyst relations plan, right? There needs to be alignment, not only across your team, but across the company. So people know like, hey, what are we doing with Gartner and Forrester and IDC? Schedule is important from a couple of perspectives. One is, depending on the analyst tier, you want to spend more time with tier 1 analysts than tier 3 analysts. And your tier 1 analyst can't be more than 3 firms, right? You don't have time, unless you have all the resources in the world to go after 10 different firms with the same message and the same cadence. You want to space them out. So you might do some quarterly, we might do some annually, and you might talk to some just semi-annually. And then tying that to the roadmap. Not every feature requires a briefing, so you want to pace that out and also understand which ones for which analyst firms would be more interesting. And the people is, make sure you leverage people around the company that can be spokespeople as well for analysts. And that means not just on calls, but if you meet them face-to-face or at trade shows. So if you go to analyst trade shows, you may want to have your VP of product or a product manager just shake hands with them. They don't need to be on a 1 hour-long meeting, but introduce them to other people in your company and leverage other spokespeople and subject matter experts. And finally, the tracking part of this is important, because you want to make sure that at the end, if you're spending all that time, you can go back to that and show, these are some of the things that we accomplished with our analyst plan, and that's why we need to renew or we need to cancel the subscription. And I have some examples here of potential metrics, right? These are some that I've used in the past related to how many mentions are we getting in analyst reports, the volume of inquiries. So if your subscription to Gartner or Forrester, for example, they track every time a client calls the analyst, and the client asks the analyst about a product, a company, an industry, etc., the analysts are tagging those calls. So later they can run reports and they say, do we need an extra analyst for this product, this solution? And you can ask the analyst for, what is the volume of inquiry calls you're getting about product A? What is the volume you're getting based on different industries, based on different personas? The analyst teams, especially the larger firms, they can give you all of that. And guess what? You can then use that as part of your plan to say, how are we getting mentioned? If we're not, which are the competitors? They're getting more mentions, so that might mean like they're moving into the market and get help with competitive analysis. Scores, placements in reports, so this is like where you're placing the quadrant and everything, but also leads and opportunities. So my previous company, we had a couple of times clients coming to us and saying, analyst A recommended I talk to you guys. guess what? We just went to the top of their list of potential vendors. It just bypassed everything. I want to see a demo. Okay, great. It doesn't happen often, but if you do your work, it can be of a great help. Deals influenced by analysts, it can be tricky to track that, unless it's one of those situations where they call you and they say, this analyst told me I should talk to you. You're going to have to track that via attribution campaigns from the marketing team, or ever trade show events, or even like could be more anecdotal, but you want to start tracking like if analysts are influenced or not. And if you're using analyst reports to help close deals, you want to make sure you can track which deals were used with which reports. If we have time, I'll give you also some tactical advice, and we can do that over drinks as well later. But there's a couple of things that I've noticed as I'm working with other people doing analyst relations and even the analyst relations teams. One is around helping them really understand how to position and message to different analysts. So this is one of the key things you want to make sure that you're embedded in. And you don't need to do that all the time. Like, have a checkup meeting with whoever is running the program and say, guys, can I just take a look at the deck we're using? And I did that at a previous company, and I noticed that that was not the latest deck. So we're missing an opportunity, right? So there's some minor things you want to make sure you do, as well as looking up the analysts before you talk to them, right? That seems obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many meetings you go with other executives of the company, and you're like, what is this analyst about? Like, what have they written? So you want to address the analyst based on what they've written, right? It's almost like talking to someone in a media company. Like, if they've written articles about you and those keywords, you want to make sure you know about that stuff. And there's more stuff we can talk about over drinks. Now, starting to wrap up, is a few signs that your plan is working. If you're mentioned in a report, that's obvious, right? But how many times you're mentioned? How are you being mentioned? Are you being mentioned as a leader, or being mentioned as an example? So for example, Gartner has the life cycle, or the hype cycle they call it, and you can be mentioned as an example of a category, or your competitor can be mentioned. And if you look at, like, is your competitor being mentioned in categories or as an examples of solutions where you are not? You want to make sure you correct that. Mentions in presentations is great. So analysts have their own conferences, and sometimes they go to other conferences to present. And when they talk about the industry, they invariably use an example from the industry. A vendor, I've had analysts using like screenshots from my product as an example of a best practice. So taking that back to the team and showing, wow, at 2 Gartner presentations, they show not only our product name as a leader, but they showed our product screenshot. They ripped out the name. That's fine, because they want to seem to be biased, but look at what we're doing, right? So that helps a lot. Analysts ask for your input. Like, they're writing a report and they reach out to you, hey, can you connect me with a customer that has this situation? Because what they're doing is they're reaching out to other vendors in the space, and they're asking the same question. So how fast you can connect them with a customer with the right example that you're looking for, the better the chances that your customer is going to be mentioned in the report. And then what happens is your customer feels good about it, and the analysts now also have a better perspective of who you are. And we talked about lead generation. So I want to thank you for your time. Feel free to connect with me and after drinks afterwards. And if we have a couple minutes, feel free to ask me any question.
My question is actually around the kind of post-production after a wave. Our company has actually just finished a Forrester wave, and we're excited about our placement. So we're not in the very bottom. But can you provide your insights or recommendations for that type of post-production work with the promotion that we want to put behind it? How are you educating and enabling your sales team to know what to do with this information? And as I'm sure you're familiar with, there's always the constraints of time. I think we have this report, I think for about a year, to actually do some promotion behind it. The cycle of every 2 year, but.
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? You want to start thinking about the whole cycle of promotion and enablement as you're submitting your wave or quadrant or whatever they call it, industry stuff, as you're submitting it, because exactly of what you're saying, like there's a time where the report is super valuable, and 2 years later, it's seen as updated. Even if another wave hasn't come out, people are going to look at it like, I don't know, it's 2 years old, right? So a couple of key things is that we've always done at my previous companies is the moment it comes out, it goes into a sales presentation, right? So you want to have it there. But you also want to make sure that you have a call, like an enablement call with the team or a webinar, however you send out the message to the sales team, and you walk them through how to use that. Because a lot of sales reps are going to just show the wave and hope that that closes a deal for them. And it doesn't work that way, as we know. So walk them through, like, what is this wave about? Why are we positioned? Why is all the other positioned the way they are? And how and when to use that in the sales cycle, right? You want to use that early to generate leads, that's fine. But typically, right, it comes right towards the end when they need to justify the purchase to their boss. And they can use that as like, oh yeah, I'm purchasing this because I believe in the product. And by the way, not only me, Forrester also, and then their boss is like, okay, that sounds like a fair assessment. But there's another thing about this, which is right when it comes out, do the enablement, add to the sales deck. The PR around that, it's limited, right? Because the quote that you can use for Forrester and Gartner, they need to approve that, and they cannot be seen as biased. But you want to make sure that you leverage that PR as much as you can as well. Because then it's like social media, get all your sales team to tweet about that. Schedule like nurturing campaigns, even for prospects, depending on the stage of the sales cycle even, to send out links to the report. Hopefully you're licensing the report if you came out in a good place, right? And making sure that you leverage the heck out of it, right? And it's like a cadence, right? Make sure that it's not one thing after 6 months, but it's like every quarter in a sales call or in your all hands meeting or whatever that meeting is where all the salespeople are there, you come back and you say, guys, remember the report? Who is using this? Who's not using this? The best thing that you can do is if you can connect with some sales reps who have successfully used the report or who can talk about how they've used it and have them to tell other reps, like at that meeting, like, hey, Joe, whatever, can you tell us what you told me about the Forrester report that came out like 6 months ago? How was that for you? And then you get everyone using it. But you need to have that cadence, and you just can't wait. So I start planning beforehand, yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Daniel.
Oh,
one more question? Yep. Sorry, everyone.
Sorry.
Let's get a blind spot over here.
So we've seen that like in our industry, there's so much volatile change and net new features and things that are doing that sometimes some organizations have felt that they weren't ranked accordingly or evaluated. And we've seen some of our competitors go after the analyst pretty aggressively. Mm-hmm. And I'm just interested to hear your perspective. Is there a tide shifting in both the gravitas of an analyst now within IT at least, how they're being perceived and how those who fight back are being perceived as well?
That's interesting, right? So I've been in a situation where we fought back as well. Like, when I say we, I mean like the CEO was pissed, right? One of those like, why are we not higher? And why is this guy higher than we are? So there was an interesting call with their processes for escalation with the analyst team that you can do that. They were never going to come back and redo the report because you said that, but there can be things that you do that help you get better evaluation the next time around. And that conversation that you have when you escalate, that is shared across that entire analyst unit as well, so that they know what happened. So the next time we have a call with them, so that helps a little bit. In our case, it actually helped a lot. Because they saw like, oh, okay, I see your point. Like, they didn't agree on 100%, but we made a case of, okay, there's a couple points here that you guys understand that you're in the wrong. And they're like, yeah, I'm not going to do anything about it, but we understand, right? The problem then with the analyst is, and I think it's getting less and less critical for you to use the analyst reports as it is used to be, primarily because of our old friend, the internet. anyone can go on G2 Crowd and you get better answers than what the analysts tell you, right? So the impact that analyst report used to have, it would definitely be like that kind of thing, like you're gonna lose like 3 percentage points on the stock market if you're not like up and to the right. But right now, people are actually going more towards the peer-to-peer reviews, at least in my experience on the IT industry, and using the analyst report as a backup plan, as well as like, oh, they're also here, right? In fact, what we have used is peer-to-peer reviews like G2 Crowd, Trust Ratings, etc., to counter what analyst reports have said, or why the other one. Because it's like, oh, why are you guys not higher than competitor A? Like, well, the analysts, and then you have to educate the buyer, right? What is the analyst looking for? They're looking at a broader term, a general movement in the market. They're not telling you like how the product works. They're not telling you all of those little things that you, buyer, you want to make sure that a product at 10 p.m., you're not getting the pager, right? Telling you that the system is down. But if you look at this couple reviews here on this G2 Crowd side, you should ask yourself if that's the right direction you want to go. So it's part of our job as product marketing to understand, and that's why I was saying how to use the analyst report for the sales team is so critical, because it's not the only thing today, right? The peer review sites can be even more critical for the sales. Make sense?
Great.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Super interesting. Yeah, I don't know anything about analyst stuff.